We've all seen them, right? Those black and white photos, the stars looking absolutely perfect, like flawless.
Totally. Shimmering gowns, perfect smiles. It's a whole aesthetic.
Exactly. They sold this this dream like they were totally untouched by everyday messy stuff.
Yeah, completely polished.
But what if? What if behind the scenes things weren't quite so fresh? What if some of those huge icons had, well, personal hygiene habits that might make you kind of rethink those glamorous close-ups?
Okay, I think I know where you're going with this.
Yeah.
It's a side you don't often hear about.
Right. So let's dive in. Today we're sort of peeling back that shiny Hollywood veneer.
Looking at the maybe less kempt side, the Golden Age stars.
You got it. Some surprisingly human details, and honestly, some of the stories we found. They might just change how you see these legends. Trust me.
It's a really compelling contrast, isn't it? That dazzling public image, so carefully built, and then the private reality, which, well, might have been a bit less perfect. We kind of see them as these myths almost.
Yeah, totally mythical.
So the idea that they struggled with something as basic as hygiene,
Yeah.
it really gives you a glimpse into their, humanity.
Oh, more than a glimpse. We're talking about the studios worked hard to keep quiet.
Oh, for sure. The fixers, the publicists.
Yeah.
Image control was everything.
Think, like, breath that could reportedly knock you over, habits that leading ladies apparently dreaded.
Wow.
We've dug up some really intimate anecdotes, maybe a little stomach churning, honestly, but they paint a very different picture.
It really highlights the power of that image-making machine, especially back then, before the internet and everything.
Absolutely. Studios had so much control over how stars were seen.
And these stories, they're like a rare peek behind that curtain, showing the actual person under the celebrity shine.
Okay, let's start with the big one. The king himself, Clark Gable.
Gable, yeah. Charisma just pouring off him.
That voice, right. But here's the thing. Behind that famous smile, well, by the time he was just 32, he'd apparently lost almost all his teeth.
Wow, 32. What happened?
Severe periodontitis. Really serious gum disease. Before modern dentistry really got going.
Right, and the dentures they had back then? Probably not great.
Not even close to what we have now. They were like primitive, often didn't fit well.
Made from different materials too, I imagine.
Yeah, and for Gable, these early dentures reportedly caused chronic halitosis. Really bad breath.
Oof. That's tough for anyone, let alone a romantic lead.
Imagine being Sophia Loren, filming. It started in Naples. Apparently, off camera, she asked the director to limit close contact.
No kidding, because of his breath.
That's the story. So the legend had this issue that made those close encounters, well, less than romantic.
It's kind of ironic, isn't it? The ultimate romantic hero.
Yeah, and get this, Gable apparently refused mouthwash or breath mints.
Seriously, why?
He supposedly thought it would mess with his acting somehow.
That's commitment, I guess.
Right. A crew member on The Misfits, his last film, remembered the smell being pretty noticeable on set. But he was the king, so,
Nobody said anything.
Exactly. He lived by his own rules, apparently. Dental hygiene included.
It really shows the kind of power those top stars had, doesn't it? They could kind of exist outside the usual rules.
Totally. Okay, now Joan Crawford. A completely different kind of star. Fiercely ambitious, image-obsessed.
Oh yeah, Crawford controlled every detail. The severe look, the spotless houses, total control freak by all accounts.
But behind that perfect exterior, her quest for a certain look led to some pretty unpleasant dental stuff.
Right, she actually had teeth removed, didn't she? Not for health, but for looks.
Exactly. Following Marlene Dietrich, apparently, had teeth pulled to make her cheekbones look sharper.
Wow, that sounds painful and risky.
It apparently backfired pretty badly. Her other teeth started shifting, created gaps. Dentists filled them with cement and caps that didn't fit right.
Oh God, constant pain, infections.
Must have been awful. And there were rumors her upper lip actually got permanently bigger because of all the complications.
It just shows the insane pressure in the studio system, right? The length they'd go to for that specific ideal look.
Yeah, enduring all that pain and potential long-term damage.
Just for the image.
And even late in life, like in her late 60s, she needed major dental surgery. It's such a contrast, obsessively clean outwardly, but dealing with these hidden dental nightmares. And there were whispers, too, that her breath got really bad when she drank heavily later on.
Yeah, the meticulously kept facade maybe had some cracks.
It's that theme again, isn't it? Public perfection, private struggle.
Absolutely. The human element under all that gloss.
Okay, then there's Marilyn Monroe. the ultimate sex symbol. You think of total glamour.
The definition of it, yeah. So iconic.
But according to several sources, including Clark Gable, again, her co-star on The Misfits, her personal hygiene habits were not great.
Really? Marilyn. That's probably the most surprising one so far, given her image.
Shockingly so, yeah. Reports say she rarely bathed, often didn't wear underwear, just wasn't a priority for her, it seems. Biographer David Brett wrote that Gable, who was apparently pretty meticulous himself, found her hygiene repulsive, wasn't interested romantically at all, despite the rumors.
Gable said that.
Yep. Claimed she could go days without bathing, never used deodorant. Imagine that under hot studio lights.
It's hard to square that with the image, you know?
Yeah.
It makes you wonder. Maybe it hints at deeper struggles or just detachment.
Could be. Her makeup artist, Whitey Snyder, apparently kept baby wipes and heavy-duty powder just for her.
For freshen her up between takes.
Yeah, trying to manage it. And the wardrobe department apparently noted she didn't change clothes very often either.
It paints a picture, doesn't it? Maybe someone overwhelmed by it all or just indifferent to those expectations.
Yeah, maybe the energy just went into the performance, not the basics.
The mundane stuff, yeah. Okay, who's next on this? Slightly uncomfortable list?
Let's take a sharp turn. Howard Hughes.
Ah, Hughes. Now there's a complex story.
Definitely. Early on, he was seen as this debonair guy, very well groomed.
Right, the handsome millionaire, aviator, filmmaker.
But as time went on, his OCD, his obsessive compulsive disorder, it just spiraled. Turned into this extreme germophobia.
Yeah, his later years are legendary for the extreme eccentricity driven by his mental health issues. It's a really sad trajectory, actually.
It really is. He ended up doing truly bizarre things, wearing tissue boxes on his feet,
I've heard that one.
letting his hair and nails grow incredibly long, refusing to bathe for months.
Became a total recluse, didn't he?
Completely. Lived naked in what he called a clean zone, surrounded by, believe it or not, jars of his own urine.
It's almost impossible to imagine compared to his earlier life, changing shirts multiple times a day, demanding absolute cleanliness.
To that. It's a stark picture of how devastating mental illness can be.
Absolutely.
And here's a really weird twist. Even living like that, in total squalor himself. His standards for women he dated were apparently impossibly high. Like any tiny perceived flaw and he wouldn't touch them.
That's, wow, the ultimate double standard, born out of his illness, I guess.
Totally irrational. And you see those rituals developing earlier too, right? Like the 15-minute hand washing routines in the 40s.
Classic OCD symptoms, yeah.
Yeah.
Becoming more and more rigid over time.
Okay, let's move to someone maybe a bit more conventionally dashing, Errol Flynn.
The swashbuckler. Sword fights, swinging from ropes, total action hero.
On screen, totally charming, full of life. Off screen, his habits apparently took a nosedive.
Seems linked to his drinking, wasn't it? A lot of reports connect his hygiene decline to his alcoholism.
Exactly. As the drinking got worse, so did the personal care. His heavy alcohol use apparently really affected his body odor, his breath.
A common, sad side effect of addiction.
Co-stars found it increasingly hard to work with him. His sweat reportedly smelled strongly of alcohol, breath got overpowering.
Yeah, when substance abuse takes hold, basic self-care often just disappears. It's not the priority anymore.
And it wasn't just the smell. He apparently got known for wearing the same clothes for days on end, even sleeping in them.
Oh, wow.
The costume departments on his later films supposedly had to get clever. They'd add extra panels to his costumes.
Clean them discreetly.
Yeah, so they could swap out or clean parts without him necessarily knowing, just to keep up appearances on screen.
That's wild. A real behind-the-scenes glimpse. Even Olivia de Havilland apparently tried to gently suggest mouthwash.
Yeah, a very diplomatic hint from a co-star.
Oh.
Okay, now, Marlon Brando.
Brando. Changed acting forever. Intense method.
Also developed a reputation for a certain lack of freshness.
Yeah, Brando's disregard for hygiene seemed almost like part of his rebellious persona, didn't it? Like rejecting Hollywood polish.
Could be. He apparently wasn't interested in conforming. Numerous co-stars complained about him not bathing regularly, not using deodorant.
I've read about that. Even early on, right? Like on Streetcar?
Yep. Director Elia Kazan apparently kept asking him to bathe more. Vivian Leigh, his co-star, was reportedly quite bothered by his body odor during their scenes together.
Intense physical scenes in that movie, too. Not ideal.
And later on, Apocalypse Now, his hygiene was supposedly a real issue for the cast and crew.
It's interesting how it kind of mirrored his whole anti-establishment stance. Like it was another way to push back.
Maybe. Makeup artists on The Godfather also reportedly had challenges getting him camera ready because of it.
Maybe playing the aging Don kind of helped hide it a bit, the character's look.
Possibly. Good point. Okay, another rebel figure, James Dean.
Dean, the ultimate cool, brooding outsider.
And that image apparently extended to his personal habits, too.
Yeah, he had that sort of earthy vibe, didn't he? Seemed deliberate, like Brando's maybe.
His bathing was reportedly infrequent, known for wearing the same clothes for ages. Director Nicholas Ray supposedly had to deal with complaints about his body odor on the set of Rebel Without a Cause. Natalie Wood also found it challenging, apparently.
You know, I read his early life involved a pretty cramped apartment, unreliable hot water. Maybe that contributed. Formed habits early on.
That's a really interesting thought. Could be. And those habits stuck even when he got famous.
Right. Elia Kazan and Julie Harris mentioned his earthy quality and his superstitions, like the unwashed red socks and leather jacket.
Considered them lucky, yeah. Almost part of his whole mystique, that rejection of the clean-cut Hollywood look.
Definitely. Okay, this is quite a list. Who else?
Judy Garland. And this one's just sad, really.
Yeah, Garland's story is heartbreaking. Her struggles were so public, eventually.
Well-documented battles with the studio, pills, booze, mental health, and it all impacted her ability to just take care of herself, basic hygiene included.
It wasn't indifference, was it? It seems like a direct consequence of the addiction and the immense pressure she was under.
Totally. Right from the start at MGM with
Yeah.
the diet pills, the amphetamines.
On Wizard of Oz, even.
Yeah. Makeup artists back then noticed the toll it was taking on her skin. As her addiction got worse, just keeping up basic routines became harder and harder.
It's such a grim look at that studio system, prioritizing the performance over the person.
Absolutely. By the time she filmed A Star is Born, her husband Sid Luft apparently assigned someone just to make sure she bathed regularly.
Wow. That says a lot.
Her hygiene was directly tied to her mental state, her sobriety level. Dirk Bogarde, her last co-star, talked about how she'd vary dramatically day to day.
It just shows how addiction and mental illness can affect everything, even the most fundamental parts of life.
Yeah.
A really human cost behind the talent.
Okay, let's talk about the king of rock and roll, Elvis.
Elvis, known for being super meticulous about his look, right?
Yeah.
Especially the hair.
Oh yeah, the hair was legendary. But his dental hygiene apparently went downhill, especially as his prescription drug use ramped up.
Another case where addiction impacts basic care, even for someone image conscious.
Yep. By the mid-60s, his teeth were apparently visibly discolored, notoriously bad breath.
Really?
His co-star, Marianne Mobley, said kissing scenes in Girl Happy were unpleasant because of it.
Wow. Such a strange contrast, isn't it? Obsessing over the hair but neglecting the teeth.
It really is. And another co-star, Susanna Lee, admitted she developed ways to kind of minimize contact during kissing scenes in paradise, Hawaiian style.
Just finding ways to cope on set. A recurring theme here.
Seems like it. Okay, Elizabeth Taylor next. Epitome of glamour.
Liz Taylor, Hollywood royalty. Hard to imagine any hygiene issues there.
Well, reportedly during really tough times, especially with Richard Burton.
The tumultuous relationship?
Yeah. Her private hygiene habits apparently slipped sometimes. Also, during Cleopatra in Italy, the local crew apparently thought American standards weren't great generally.
Interesting.
But Taylor's habits were also supposedly tied to her emotions. Meticulous when happy, neglectful when upset.
That makes a certain kind of sense, actually.
Well.
Self-care often suffers during emotional distress.
One makeup artist even said she might go days without bathing when troubled, just relying on perfume and powder.
Covering it up.
Director Joseph Mankiewicz apparently had a system getting an assistant to gently suggest a bath. Very diplomatic.
Had to be, right? With a star that huge. Delicate situation.
Okay, quick one. Charlie Chaplin.
The tramp. His character almost embraced poor hygiene as part of the charm.
Exactly. And his own habits sometimes blurred that line. His second wife, Lita Gray, claimed he had terrible hygiene during their messy divorce.
So maybe take that with a grain of salt.
Probably. But others did confirm irregular bathing, especially when he was deep into a project, yet he always looked immaculate in public.
So he could turn it on when needed. Private versus public again.
Humphrey Bogart next, the tough guy.
Boogie. Rugged. Iconic.
But behind that tough exterior,
Yeah.
notoriously bad breath.
Yes. Bogart's breath. That was apparently well known. Linked to the smoking and drinking, right?
Yeah. Up to 3 packs of cigarettes a day, reportedly. Plus the booze, plus maybe not the best dental care. It made close-ups tricky.
It must have.
Lauren Bacall, his wife, supposedly didn't mind or didn't show it. But Ingrid Bergman apparently asked the director on Casablanca to minimize their close-ups.
Wow. Yet they created such amazing chemistry on screen.
Yeah.
Testament to their professionalism.
Totally. Katharine Hepburn apparently diplomatically called it aromatic challenges on the African Queen.
Great understatement.
And Bogart supposedly knew about it, but just saw it as part of his lifestyle. Wasn't going to change.
Fits his image, doesn't it? Uncompromising. Take it or leave it.
Yeah. Okay, nearly there. Rita Hayworth, the love goddess.
So glamorous. But her story has that element of studio cruelty too, doesn't it?
It really does. Her image hid some painful, persistent issues caused by studio demands.
The electrolysis, right? To change her hairline.
Exactly. Studio head Harry Cohn insisted on it. Painful procedure, caused permanent scalp damage, led to chronic seborrheic dermatitis, flaking, itching, oiliness.
Oh, awful. Hidden under all that perfect hair and makeup.
Yep, makeup and hair crews had to constantly manage it. And the heavy, toxic dyes for her red hair just made it worse.
Orson Welles talked about how damaging those beauty treatments were for her, didn't he? The human cost of that manufactured glamour.
He did. Very sad. And, we could mention Montgomery Clift, how his self-care declined after his terrible accident.
Yeah, pain and addiction taking their toll.
Or Tallulah Bankhead, who just seemed completely unbothered by conventional hygiene, embraced her own approach.
A character, by all accounts.
Definitely. But as we wrap this up, it's just such a striking contrast, isn't it? The perfect illusion Hollywood built versus these very human, sometimes really unpleasant realities hidden away.
It really highlights the work that went into maintaining those images. The publicists, the studios, constantly concealing anything less than perfect.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? Like, how does knowing this stuff, these slightly icky details, change how you see those classic movies, those stars you maybe idolize?
Yeah.
That manufactured perfection clearly cost them something, and it cost us maybe a more realistic understanding of them as people.
I think it's maybe a good reminder, though. Even these huge icons, they were just people. With flaws, struggles, pressures, even with basic stuff like hygiene, it kind of underscores their humanity, maybe? Makes them more relatable in a weird way.
A fascinating and, sometimes slightly fragrant reminder. Definitely something to think about next time you watch one of those Golden Age classics.